Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a different angle on my kitchen. Tonight, I'm actually going to be working to prepare some things, so I've turned my camera around and aimed it towards my stove. So I'm still experimenting with different configurations in the kitchen, but I figured, I'm going to have to start demoing actual food on the stove at some point. So let's try to figure it out right now. So tonight, I'm excited to be able to highlight a couple of vegan recipes. Back in the late 90s, I was vegan for about 18 months, really solid vegan. And then I merged into vegetarian for a while and then ultimately came back to being more omnivorous. But those years of being vegan and vegetarian, I gathered a tremendous number of cookbooks and became pretty creative about how I built meals, because when you remove animal products entirely from the table, you have to become very creative about how to get enough protein, how to get a really balanced diet. And it's quite possible, but you just have to work a little harder at it. So in those years, I developed a lot of recipes that I still use today. And they're quite often, people talk about meatless Mondays or whatever. Sometimes I'll go for days and days and realize that I've had nothing but a vegetable and fruit-based plant-based meals. It's pretty easy. So tonight, I'm going to use this rock crock for the first time. This is one of my new Pampered Chef products that I've never tried before. So tonight is my first time. Normally I would make this recipe for curry, brown rice, and lentils probably in my cast iron, but I would normally make a double recipe. So it's kind of a lot of it in the cast iron, and I take it to parties and potlucks and things like that. Tonight I'm making just a regular single recipe for you. So I've already preheated the oil. So what we're starting with is a half of a large onion chopped and 2 cloves of garlic. So we're going to throw that in to the rock crock. And you'll notice I did all my food prep earlier today and put it in these handy little measuring bowls, which I love. One of my favorite Pampered Chef things. So the deal to start with is, like with many recipes, is just saute the onions and the garlic until the onions start to become translucent. So that's going to take a couple of minutes. So while I'm right-handed, so this is going to be really, really interesting to see how I can stir with my left hand, because I'm not ambidextrous at all. So this recipe is pretty simple. I'm going to give you some of the ingredients now so that you can write them down, but I will post the full recipe tomorrow on my Cooking with Tommy page. First of all, it's half an onion. Garlic, depends on how much you like garlic. I use about 4 cloves. You need at least 2 because you want that flavor, but sometimes 4 is good for me. And I'm sauteing that together. It's going to get translucent in a minute. And what I'm going to do next is throw the spices in on this and toast the spices in with this for just a couple of minutes. And then I'm going to throw the rice in and let the rice toast with the spices and the onions and the garlic before I put the rest of the ingredients in. So what I'm going to be putting in as far as spices are concerned are, I've mixed them together. You'll be able to see it's a lot of curry-based spices. So essentially, this is to taste. But what I use is a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, and then anywhere from 2 to 3 tablespoons of curry. I tend to use about 3 tablespoons of curry. I do 2 tablespoons of regular curry and 1 tablespoon of hot curry. I'm not a big fan of super hot food, so I tend to like to err on the side of caution. So I use 3 tablespoons of curry, but when you make it for the first time, put in what you think you want and you sort of taste it and see. So the next time you make it, you can correct the seasoning for yourself. So that's going to be the seasoning. After that, we're going to be adding in 1 cup of brown rice and 3/4 of a cup of lentils. And with that, 4 cups of liquid. Now, if you use water, then you need to put bouillon in it. I use a vegetable bouillon called Better Than Bouillon, which is a great product. But today, I made some vegetable stock a few weeks ago and froze it. So I thawed that out today and added a little bit of bouillon to sort of balance the flavors out. And I'm going to add that. And you'll notice in a minute when I do add the stock that I have heated the stock. I don't like to add cold water to a dish like this because it essentially stops the cooking process for just a little while. Everything has to heat back up again, and it takes a little bit longer. So I like to keep the stock at a nice warm temperature. Now the onions are nice and translucent right now. So what I'm going to do is add all of my spices directly in. And then I'm just going to stir all of that together to combine the flavors. Now, what you may find is because the spices are now sucking up some of the oil, that when you add the brown rice, which I'm getting ready to do in just about 1 minute, I am likely going to, in fact, I am for sure going to add just a dollop more of olive oil. That'll be just enough. All right. Yeah, so I've got just a little bit of oil in the bottom of this pan. So what I'm going to do now is add the brown rice. So we want to just toast the rice a little bit and coat it in all of those really yummy curry and ginger and turmeric spices. One thing that I think I'm going to like about this rock crock from Pampered Chef is that if I do make this particular recipe and I'm going to take it to a party or a potluck, this is a lot lighter to carry than that cast iron Dutch oven that weighs about 20 pounds, it feels like. So, and this is kind of a one-pot meal. You actually can keep it all this. You can take it, you can serve it out of the same pot. So it's really pretty awesome. I'm going to let that toast for just a minute. The next thing that I'm going to do is add the bulk of the rest of the ingredients, which includes the 3/4 cup of dried lentils, the 4 cups of liquid, which in my case is vegetable stock, and then a 1/2 cup of raisins. You put the raisins in now because the raisins, like the rice and like the lentils, will soak up some of that liquid and start to rehydrate. They never get the size of grapes again, but they get the size of like tiny grapes. So that's kind of a nice texture. So there we have the rice and the onions and some garlic. And at this point, you're also going to add an additional, perhaps 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to shoot that in with the wonderful Pampered Chef garlic press, which is one of my very favorite things from Pampered Chef. There's the garlic. Here is the 3/4 ounce of brown lentils. I love these little measure-all cups too. I think I showed this to you the other day because I could pack the raisins down and then you just pop and there you go. And here's the 4 cups of stock. And as I said earlier, I like to keep the stock heated so that when I add it, it doesn't slow everything down. So there's my stock. I'm going to stir all of this together. You bring it to a boil and then simmer it for about 25 minutes. Once it's simmered for about 25 minutes, you will then add 1 large chopped tart apple. It's really important to use a firm apple. You can do 2 medium-sized or 1 large apple. This was a pretty big apple. You can see I've kept the chunks nice and large, and I squeezed a lot of lemon juice on it so that they didn't brown, and I kept it in the refrigerator. But this, you put the apples in after about 25 minutes. It only then cooks for another 10 to 15 minutes. So the apples never get mushy. They still retain some of their crunch, and you've got that really nice connection between the curry and the tart apple with the sweet raisins. It's a really nice interplay. So it's kind of like a take on an Indian dal in many ways. But I'll save these to put them in a little while later once this comes to a boil. So it's close to boiling. I'm going to let that sit for just a minute and see if I have any So Allison asked, do you need to rinse the lentils? Yes, I did rinse the lentils. And because when you actually rinse lentils, the ones that are kind of just not great, the bad ones, will float to the top, and you can get rid of those. So yeah, rinse the lentils. You can also rinse the rice. That's an optional thing. Some people love to wash their rice before they use it. I don't most of the time, but in this particular recipe, it can work either way. So yes, I would say do rinse the lentils. All right, we're just coming to a boil. Yeah. I'm going to leave that for a second. So in preparation for the next thing that I'm going to make, what I'm going to be making next is a simple sauce, or kind of a, yeah, I guess you would call it a sauce. That's a pretty thick sauce that once it's done, you can use it as a spread, or you can actually slacken it up a little bit when you reheat it and dribble it over steamed vegetables or rice or grains or something like that. And it's a really simple recipe that only has a few ingredients. But the primary ingredient is red miso. I tend to use this Miso Master organic miso. I got this at Whole Foods, but I think you can get it in many different places. This is my favorite miso, but there's plenty of other red misos out there. Miso is a fermented soybean product. So what's great about this recipe is once you've made the sauce that I'm going to show you how to make, and it cools, you can put it in the refrigerator with a nice lid on it, and it will keep for a super long time because it's a fermented product. So you can make some. What I'm going to make tonight is a small batch. What you should do is try it, and if you like it, then the next time you make it, double or triple or quadruple it, and that way you've got plenty of it to use for the next several weeks. This is just about at a boil, so I'm going to put the top on it, and I'm going to lower the heat, and I'm going to put the timer on for 25 minutes so that I don't burn it. All right, so I need to just adjust a couple of things in my kitchen. So what I'm going to do first is play a very short video for you to cover my time of moving some stuff around, and I'll be back in just a second to show you the simple red miso sauce. So let me see. I'm going to show you this video. This is my favorite Pampered Chef product. There you go, the food chopper, my favorite of all Pampered Chef products. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is red miso with ginger. You can make it with or without, but I really think that the ginger adds a lot to it. So what we're starting with, and I've already mixed everything together for you, is 1/4 cup of red or barley miso, 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 tablespoons of sake, if you have it, but if not, a dry white wine. I used vermouth in this tonight. 1 tablespoon of water, and then 2 teaspoons of freshly grated ginger. Now, I want to show you, I think I can reach behind and grab it. Yes. A few months ago, I was shopping, and ginger, for some inexplicable reason, was on sale. So I bought a whole bunch of it. I grated it, and then I froze it in 1 teaspoon clumps on a sheet tray in the oven, in the freezer. And then once it was frozen, I threw those little tiny clumps all in a Ziploc bag together. They mostly retain their shape. Now it's been a while, they're actually kind of falling apart, but you can see like the size of one of them. That's about a teaspoon. So you can save these for quite a long time. So I used my frozen ginger today. But that's all this is. So what you do is you put the solution, whoops, that's a little hot, but we'll turn it down. We do like the sizzling sound, though. So you put the solution in your pan and turn the heat down because I've got it way too hot. And you basically just stir it until it's combined. For about maybe, and let it cook together for about 2 minutes. It's not that difficult. So the cool thing about this recipe is you'll notice what we have is this dark miso sauce, but it's miso with honey, sake or vermouth or dry white wine, a little bit of water, and some fresh ginger. Once you've actually got that combined and you let it sort of cook together for maybe 2 minutes, that's all you need. Poof, you're done. And then you let it cool. It becomes kind of thick and it's pretty salty because miso is a very salty thing. You can spread it on tofu. You can spread it on bread if you're making a vegan or a vegetarian sandwich, or you can heat it back up and maybe slacken it with a tiny bit of water or maybe a little bit more sake just to give it a little bit more liquidity. And you can drizzle it over steamed vegetables or grains. It's really awesome and it's very, very flexible. You can do a whole lot with this and God, it's good. I tend to like salty things and that's pretty amazing. So a couple of variations on that recipe. And I will put these in the recipe tomorrow. If you were not doing a vegan diet, could you? Oh yeah, absolutely, Allison. You could definitely use that on fish. The cool thing about this is you could put this on anything that's not going to be overwhelmed by something that's a little bit sweet and salty. And what I like about this is because of the addition of the honey, the miso is very salty. The honey sweetens that up a little bit. The ginger, gives it that nice ginger kick. And as Mary Kay just said, it's all about umami. This is like an umami bomb sauce. If you like the umami concept, you'll love this sauce. So a couple of variations. You can do it without the ginger. That's perfectly applicable. But you can also do this recipe, but then add about a 1/4 cup of peanut butter or a 1/4 cup of tahini to it. If you do that, you need to add a little bit more liquid. So I would say add maybe a tablespoon more water to the recipe at that point so that it has the right consistency. But that tahini or the peanut butter give it a whole different perspective and a different texture. But it's a nice, flexible, easy recipe because if you don't use the ginger, you're basically only using a few ingredients. You're using red miso, honey, dry white wine or sake, and water. Poof, that's it. Ginger is your additional ingredient, which I have in here. And then if you want to ramp it up a little bit, add either peanut butter or tahini, and poof, you've got a really versatile sauce that you can use on vegan or vegetarian things, or you can use it as Allison said, on fish. Mary Kay, lemongrass. What are you asking about lemongrass? Could you put lemongrass in this? I don't think this would be good. You know what? This would not be good with lemongrass, but I think what would be good if you wanted to use lemongrass is instead of using the red miso, use the sweet white miso or yellow miso, whatever it's called, but the sweeter, lighter colored miso, because that, instead of ginger. Yeah, no, not in this one, but like I was just saying, if you went for the different kind of miso, the lighter miso that's a little bit sweeter, lemongrass would pair beautifully into that light miso. I don't think lemongrass would work well in this because it's so intense that you would lose the flavor of the lemongrass into the miso. Ginger can hold its own against the miso here. But like I said, if you go with that sweeter miso, the lighter kind, lemongrass would be brilliant in this. So yeah, you might want to try it. And actually, next time I shop, I'll try some of that lighter miso and put some lemongrass in it and let you know how it goes. But if you get to it first, let me know. So just to recap before we take a little break and I move over to cocktail land, is The curried brown rice with lentils is bubbling away. It's got another 17 minutes or so before I put the Granny Smith apples into it. Really, really simple. One of the things I like about this recipe is if you're going to serve this, whether you're going to take it to a potluck or a party, or if you're going to serve it at a dinner party, tonight I could eat some of this. It would be very tasty tonight after it's cooked. But like so many foods, this particular recipe tastes 100% better tomorrow. Once you've cooked it, let it cool down, put it in the refrigerator overnight. When you reheat it, it's a totally different flavor because everything has had time to meld together. And those kinds of recipes I love for dinner parties or for potlucks and things because you can make it the day ahead. And if you've got guests coming over for a dinner party, you're not slaving as much over the stove, and you can spend more time with your guests because you've pretty much made a big chunk of everything the day before. So this is one of those recipes like lasagna is, or beef stew, or any of those kind of things that are always better the second day. So again, it'll be nice tonight, but much better tomorrow. And the optional ingredients in this are how much curry you choose to use and how hot that curry is. Do it to taste. If you hate raisins, you don't have to put the raisins in here. I love the raisins. The original recipe I remember that I adapted from, 25 years ago, the first time I made this, had sunflower seeds in it, and I just don't like sunflower seeds. I think they're kind of boring, so I don't put the sunflower seeds in it. If you want to try it, throw in like a quarter cup of sunflower seeds and see how you like it. You probably like them better than I do. But really simple because the stuff that you can adjust is more or less the curry and leaving out the raisins, but everything else, pretty much keep it the way that I told you the first time you make it and see how you like it. With the miso sauce, same thing. Make it by the recipe that I'm going to give you and then adjust, play with it. And as I mentioned earlier to Mary Kay's question, Allison, I used golden raisins. So you can use raisins or currants. I think it's better with the golden type of raisins. I use these golden raisins. Yes, Mary Kay, pepitas would be pretty well. I think would go well in it. I think pepitas would be much better than the sunflower seeds. That's actually a better substitution. Maybe I'll try that the next time I make it. But yeah, Allison, I have a tendency to prefer the golden raisins just because I like the flavor of them. How about almonds? Yeah, I mean, if you like almonds, I wouldn't put them in whole. I would chop them up a little bit or use flaked almonds, just because of the shape and the size of the pieces of almonds. Whole almonds would not be good, but chop them up or use flaked almonds, and those would be fine in this. Because think about it, what we're looking at is a rice and lentil dish with some curry, so it becomes a base for other things. The option, if you don't care about keeping it vegan, if you want to make it vegetarian, is that you can serve it with a dollop of yogurt, which is awesome, like Greek yogurt. And then maybe if you want to sprinkle some nuts on that, it makes a really pretty presentation, or even put some chopped up herbs because that's always pretty. But the yogurt, if you've made if I've done this before, if you've accidentally used all hot curry instead of mixing regular curry, and you take a spoonful and you go, oh my God, my head is going to blow off because this is so hot, then dairy products are the way to go to offset chili heat in food. So I would say throw some yogurt on it if it's too hot. But yeah, that's obviously not vegan at that point, but vegetarian is cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep an eye on this, but I'm going to show another short video so that I can, what I'm going to have to do this time is I'm going to have to turn the camera around and aim it to a different part of my kitchen so I can show you the cocktail recipe, and then we'll come back to this at the end before we end. So let me pop over, and then I'll take some more of your questions as soon as I reconfigure my kitchen. So what I'm going to show you is a video that I think is really interesting. One of the products that they have with Pampered Chef that I think is really cool are these enrichables. They have a pea protein and then also a kale protein version. This particular little bag has 10 grams of protein, but it comes in bigger amounts. And the thing about these enrichables is you can add them to almost any recipe and they kind of disappear into the recipe, but it adds that extra protein. I thought about these tonight when I was making this vegan dish, because one of the things I found when I was vegan is until I kind of learned how to do it, I was finding that I was just not getting enough complex protein in my diet. You can get plenty of protein from plants, but you have to be really savvy about how to do it. Like this, for instance, is a really high protein dish because the combination of rice and lentils gives you a pretty complex protein. But the pea protein would be great to add to this at the end to boost the protein. So if you're somebody who knows that either you or the people you cook for are not getting quite enough nutritious protein in their diet, these enrichables are pretty awesome. So I'm going to show you a quick video, about the enrichables, and then we're going to move over to the land of boozy cocktails.
Hi, I'm Sandy, and as a registered dietitian, I'm always looking for ways to help people eat better without abandoning the recipes they love. That's why I'm so excited about enrichables. We all have our routines and the list of foods we know our family will eat. If you're a busy mom like me, it's a win when everyone is happy during dinner. And it's a bonus when I know my family is getting the nutrients they need. Enrichables couldn't be easier to use. We've made it so you can add a boost to almost any recipe you make. With nutritional powders like enrichables, your first thought is probably smoothies. And yes, these make some awesome smoothies, but enrichables go way beyond that. I like adding more fiber into my family's taco night. I know my family doesn't always get enough fiber, so this is a great way to help meet their nutritional needs and keep their guts healthy. And I like to add a little protein to my kid's favorite mac and cheese to help him stay full and get him the protein he needs. I can even get a boost into baked goods. You can feel good about using plant-based enrichables in your family's meals because they're soy-free, vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, dairy-free, and made without nuts. This makes enrichables a great choice, especially for families with food allergies or dietary restrictions. Enrichables are a game changer. They give me the reassurance that my family is eating well while enjoying all the foods that we love. Whether you have picky eaters at home or you're just looking to fill in some of your own nutrient gaps, enrichables can help. Once you start using them, you'll see just how easy it is to boost your everyday meals.
All right, I am back. I'm going to try the, what's hard about this is that there was almost no way to actually configure this in such a way that I could get everything that I wanted in the camera shot. So what you're going to see is the back of my laptop. Sorry about that. But here we go. If I had a technician, it would be lovely, but you know, I'm my own technician. All right. So I promised tonight that I would talk to you about the traditional Negroni cocktail, but also give you some options on that cocktail. One of the things about a traditional Negroni that's awesome is that, like the some of the other cocktails we talked about earlier this week in my other videos, it's an equal parts cocktail. So it's almost impossible to forget the recipe. It only has 3 ingredients. It has gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth, which you'll see here. I'm using Few Gin like I did on Monday night from Evanston, Illinois. Campari, which is a lovely bitter liqueur. And then this is the Carpano Antica sweet vermouth. So to make a traditional Negroni, it's just 1 ounce of each. And you generally garnish it with an orange peel. So I'm going to do that tonight. And rather than doing it up, I did have these little round ice cubes, and my round ice cube thing failed, so it became kind of like a half round ice cube, but that actually works pretty well for this. So, and as you might be able to see, the glass says optimist and pessimist. I like to think that when it hits that halfway line, it's half full, not half empty. So I'm an optimist. All right. So we're going to move the glass. This is another simple one that you do not shake because it doesn't have citrus and it doesn't have syrup. for you to incorporate. So this is a stirring cocktail. So obviously, we'll start with one of the three major ingredients. So you need an ounce of each. This is an ounce of Campari. An ounce of sweet vermouth. And an ounce of gin. Plus a little bit more. I always do that. So, all right. Easy peasy cocktail. Equal parts, stir. Stir until it's chilled. You know, maybe 20 turns in the cup. Different bartenders and mixologists have different rules on that, but in my case, I think 20-ish is pretty good. Again, the Hawthorne strainer, you put in, you push with your finger, push it up against, and then you use that to strain the cocktail. In this case, usually with a Negroni, you're going to garnish with an orange peel. What I like to do is express the peel in first. So basically you're squeezing the orange peel to get some of the volatile acids to shoot down into the glass. And then you just lay the orange peel along the side of your ice cubes. And poof, you have a classic Negroni cocktail. Yum. All right, I'll be finishing that. Now, here are some variations that you might want to try that will make this cocktail really versatile for you. First of all, Mary Kay will love this one. The Negroni is excellent if you substitute mezcal for the gin. So same ingredients, 1 ounce of mezcal, 1 ounce of Campari, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, and you've got this amazing cocktail that also has that smoky mezcal flavor. So that's a great variation, the mezcal Negroni. One of my favorite, usually kind of a summertime cocktail for me, is what's called the Negroni sbagliato. The word sbagliato in Italian means like mistake or something that's broken. So the Negroni sbagliato is essentially the exact same recipe, except you're substituting Prosecco for the gin. So it's 1 ounce of Prosecco, 1 ounce of Campari, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. Much lighter. Prosecco, of course, is a little bit sweeter, so you're getting a more sugar-forward cocktail at that point. But it's kind of like an Aperol spritz in the summertime. Campari and Aperol are very similar types of liquors. So for people who like an Aperol spritz, you might like the Negroni sbagliato because it gives you a similar texture and flavor profile. One of my other favorite versions of the Negroni is the rye version of it. It's called an Old Pal cocktail. So you get rid of the gin and you use rye instead, but I found that you adjust the quantities just a little bit. Instead of making an equal parts cocktail, use a little bit more rye. So it becomes a slightly bigger drink. It's more than 3 ounces. It's 3.5 ounces. So you would use 1.5 ounces of rye, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, not sweet vermouth, and then 1 ounce of Campari. You want that one to stay a little bit drier. So it's still a riff on a Negroni, but you're using dry vermouth and a little more rye. And I find that the Old Pal is better if you garnish with a lemon peel than an orange. It's just a better flavor profile. Now, my very favorite riff on a Negroni is an interesting one because it's a cocktail that has become a classic all by itself. When it was first created, however, it was created because somebody was playing around with the Negroni recipe and trying to find different ways to express those types of ingredients. So they created this cocktail that included 2 ounces of bourbon, 3/4 of an ounce of Campari, and 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. And it's called a boulevardier. for any of you who don't know. That's a great bourbon cocktail. So it's bourbon, Campari, and sweet vermouth. And in general, I'm not going to do it tonight because I don't want to burn down my apartment. But generally, they'll express the orange peel and light it on fire and then drop that into the drink. So what happens is that when you squeeze that orange peel, the volatile acids start to spurt out. You can't really see them, but if you put a match in between the glass and the orange peel while you're doing that, they will go poof and light on fire. And you get just a little tiny smoky flavor in the Boulevardier. So that's my favorite riff on a Negroni, but just a plain straight up Negroni with the 3 equal parts and the orange peel is a delightful drink. And it's great after dinner. This is a great digestif drink because of the bitterness of the Campari. So we're right at a point where I'm almost at the point where I can add the apples into the curried rice and lentils. So I'm going to show just another quick video to cover my reset of moving everything around in my kitchen. And I'll be back in about a minute. Oh, this is a cool one. This is another of my favorite products. It's that measure all cup that I showed you. So I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to turn the camera around. I'll be right back. So I have all 3 sizes now. I'm very excited. We have the petite one, which is a little tiny, but it's cool, and the medium one, which I showed you tonight, and then the large one. I've had this one for years. I use it all the time, and I just got this a month ago, and I just got this last week. So I'm kind of excited to try them all out. I'm such a dork about kitchen products. I just love it. All right, so we are ready to throw in the apples to the brown rice, curry brown rice and lentils. What I'm going to show you, though, I'm going to try to see if I can use another oven mitt and show you how yummy that looks. It's almost all the water has been incorporated. It's really quite beautiful. I'm going to pour in the apples and incorporate them. This is great because it needs to cook for another 15 minutes or so. And it looks like that's going to be perfect because you want to cook it for maybe 10 to 15 minutes after you put the apples in, or until the liquid has been fully incorporated into the rice and lentils. And it looks like that is going to happen in about 15 minutes. And here, just so you can see, there's the curry brown rice and lentils with the Granny Smith apples in it, in the rock crock, which is, I'm really liking this pan. That's a really cool one. What did I do at the top? I get lost in my own kitchen. Hope I'm not the only one who does. Let's say. So Allison said your house must smell amazing. Yeah, it does, because that smell of that curry is just phenomenal. And it's just one of the things I love about cooking is the fact that if you're cooking something really good like this, everything starts to smell good in your house. I mean, converse is there's certain foods that smell horrible when they're cooking, but in this case, this is a great one. So, I'm going to have a little bit of this for dinner later tonight once it's done, and I'll let you know tomorrow how it went. But again, it's better. I'm going to let it get to room temperature tonight before I go to bed. Put it in the refrigerator, and then I, for me, as somebody who lives alone, this is great because I can reheat just a little bit. And after a couple of days, if I feel like I'm not going to eat my way through it, I will freeze what's left in small quart-sized Ziploc bags. And what I do, and this, I'm sure many of you do this, but here's a nice trick that's helped me with organizing my freezer, is I tend to freeze things in 2-cup batches because 2 cups is a nice serving size. And I put that in a quart Ziploc bag, which is a 4-cup bag, but you put the 2 cups of whatever it is in, and then flatten the bag out and get all the air out. So you now have a flat thing. Put it on a baking tray, stack them on top of each other, put them in the freezer, let them freeze flat, because then you can put them in your freezer either laying flat like that or on their side like books. And they take up less room and you can see exactly how much stuff you have. So as long as they're completely flat, they will stack on top of each other. Sometimes I'll move them on their side depending. But it's a great way to save space in your freezer, but also for somebody who lives alone, especially, or even if you don't live alone and you have people who you need single portions or enough for 2, it's a great way to store things. So quick recap before we're done. Curry brown rice and lentils, recipe will be posted. Simple simmered red miso with ginger. I will post this plus the variations on the recipe. And of course, the Negroni cocktail. I will post a quick, easy recipe, but that's one that you can look up anywhere, and it's not a hard one to remember. Equal parts. And that's a really yummy cocktail. All right, so before we end tonight, I wanted to see if there were any more questions. Anybody have a question before I give you a little outro tonight? All right, no questions. So if you do have questions, you know where to find me. You're all following me on Facebook. If anybody is interested in hosting a Pampered Chef party, please send me a message. I'm so excited. I've booked 3 parties today. So I'm working on parties in March, and I'm looking into April now to add some dates in April and onward. So I'm happy to talk to you about finding a date. I have a tendency from my own party that I did a few weeks ago, but also talking to other people, I have a tendency to kind of like the idea of a party that runs for about 6 days-ish. Open it on a Sunday night or a Monday, close it on a Saturday night or a Sunday. So you have all week and a little bit of the weekend. And that way you can have fun with your guests, but you get everything sort of closed out over the weekend. So hit me up with a message, and I will be posting sometime in the next few days another live video. I did 3 this week because it's my virtual launch party, but I'm certainly not going to do 3 a week because I just don't have time to do 3 a week for the rest of my life. But I'm going to try to do at least 1 a week, and I may pick a specific night of the week and make it an every week event so that people can actually look and know that it's always going to be Monday at a certain time or Thursday at a certain, whatever day I choose. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in tonight. And if you're watching this later, thank you for watching it later. If you have any questions about the recipes that I prepared tonight, please send me a message. And now I'm ready to let this finish cooking so that I can have a little bit of dinner and finish my yummy Negroni cocktail. Optimist, it's half full. So thank you, everybody, and I will be back again soon.